50 plus companies acquired within 4 to 5 years. Just pause and think, it's mind boggling. My success is not how fast can I standardize or make things consistent. My success is, are those vertical businesses ready to plug into the shared services that my team is creating because it makes them better.
Let's get started. So first of all, you are the CIO of EverCommerce. Prior to this, you were at Procore. You worked at a small company called Cisco for a little while, I think before that as well. Yes. So you've been in the enterprise business as a technology leader across multiple companies. So let's just get into it. I would love to just start at the very, very high level. Like, just tell us a little bit about your company, because my understanding is that you serve like hundreds of thousands of customers, generating a good over $500 million in revenue. Would love to just get a little bit more idea about the company and kind of the role you've taken. So let's start from the very top.
Yeah, so EverCommerce is SaaS, systems of action for SMB, and it came. So we acquired 50 plus companies. We've been in existence 10 plus years, but most of the acquisition happened over a period of 4 to 5 years. So if you can just pause and think, it's mind boggling. 50 plus companies acquired within 4 to 5 years. And it's a very interesting challenge, something that I've never seen before. Yeah. And something that also got me excited about, right? So, and in my remit as a CIO here, I had enterprise applications, enterprise data and analytics, security, corporate IT and infrastructure, and enterprise PMO.
And so is it fair to say that, I mean, it sounds like the company has gone through a journey of acquisition and growth. It's of course gone through a lot of scale. Just talk about the role. I mean, clearly it looks like the company needed an executive to be able to lead transformation, to get itself much better governance around technology, and then be able to sort of drive improvement in a number of platforms. Is that about right in terms of what the goal of the role is? But happy to make sure that...
Yes. So I think the goal is to keep that entrepreneur DNA that we have in the businesses that we acquired, because they were successful businesses. So not to kill that in our effort to standardize. So as a CIO in this company, I have to be very thoughtful about what should be standardized versus what shouldn't be standardized, right? So things that we standardize are, how do we do security? What should be our core platforms? How should we do governance around data, our infrastructure? But what we do not want to standardize is that we want to let the business move as fast as they want and innovate. So we don't want to kill that. So that's an interesting balance to keep. And for me, as a leader of this organization, my success is not how fast can I standardize or make things consistent. My success is so we have 3 vertical businesses now.
Right.
My success is, are those vertical businesses ready to plug into the shared services that my team is creating because it makes them better.
Right. And so that differs from where you were in previous companies, where ultimately you were acquiring a number of companies, and some of that was, or they were growing because they were built organically. But, as you mentioned, a staggering number of acquisitions. And to be honest with you, one thing that most people don't understand, it doesn't matter whether the acquisition is small, medium, or large. An acquisition is an acquisition.
Yes.
It requires integrations of process and people, and legal documentation and financial transactions and organizing infrastructure. So it actually doesn't matter. Was a striking difference to you, or what has been the biggest observation you've had in being able to integrate and work in a company that has...
Definitely, because here, right, we were dealing with multiple operating models, multiple ways that people work, and even in an organic company, you do deal with, disparate tech stacks and fragmentation. But here, the problem is even more multiplied because we have that many acquisitions. So I think some of what I learned in the previous companies I could apply here, but at the same time, the starting point was very different, right? My function here is not just a technology function, it's also a trust building function. And probably it's the same way for other companies that are organic, but I think it becomes even more important in this context where you have to first earn the trust of the vertical business units for them to then want to come and plug and play in the shared services and see the value and see how that makes them better.
Could you talk a little bit more about that? Because I think that's important. I think a lot of CIOs don't realize, and you and I have talked about this in the past, is a large part of the role is being able to build and establish trust with the executive team, establish partnerships. It doesn't matter whether it's different leaders or business groups or products. It's actually sometimes it's just building a partnership with the right function. How do you come in as, I would argue, kind of your real transformational leader? Everybody's kind of like, wait, what is she doing here? What is she going to do next? What's her remit? So I think it would be worthwhile for a lot of CIOs and aspiring IT leaders to hear about how you are able to build trust to the executive team, having seen and done this before.
Yeah, it's really building, the understanding of the business by, building those partnerships with the various business stakeholders, whether it's finance or with, the product team or the sales team, and actually doing what you say and saying what you do, right? And really being authentic about it. We just went through a massive quote to revenue program for two of our largest verticals, and we actually had a lessons learned exercise today, which is very transparent, right? So one of the things that I was really proud of was the trust that has been established, and we could candidly talk about what worked and what didn't work and what do we need to do better next time. So creating that psychological safety didn't come overnight. It came when issues arose. Like we went through hypercare post go live, right?
Yeah.
There were tons of issues that we had to resolve, but we did it in partnership with the various business stakeholders, and they saw that we genuinely wanted to make the business better, and that helped us build that trust, right?
Let's shift gears a little bit. So you ultimately you've worked with companies, I don't know, by design or otherwise, which came from a high growth perspective, right? So Procore, Samsara, also Cisco and EverCommerce, etc. So in each of these, largely quite an engineering-led product, and so you've got a partnership with those functions. I would argue the engineering stack is completely being revamped and rethought in the age of AI, and we're seeing that with companies who are providing an autonomous way for, say, software development lifecycle, right down to code generation to looking at SRE. So all of this stuff is happening right now. How do you bring kind of the leadership style from high growth, SaaS kind of DNA into this environment? Like, one is established trust. We talked about that. But could you talk one level deep about kind of operating your team and how you make them successful?
Actually, what do we mean by high growth SaaS DNA? So let's just unpack that,
Yeah,
right?
totally.
It means different things to different people, I think. If you look at any high grown SaaS company, they are very obsessed by their customers. They want to move fast, but with discipline, right? And obviously, you just said engineering and IT are key strategic partners to help the business grow. So those are the three things, right? So, and in our environment, we are also a SaaS company, right? So it's no different. So first thing is like being customer obsessed. Obviously, the go-to-market teams, the product and engineering team for the product, they're talking about the end customers. But for me, I'm thinking about my internal users as also my customer, because I'm bringing that product thinking into in my IT world, right? So how do we obsess over our customers or our end users and really know what do they need, and then build solutions that will scale and help the company grow, right? So that's one. The second is, moving fast, but with discipline, right? So sometimes in a company like where the processes are still forming, especially when I came here, we were establishing the processes. Sometimes processes can be seen as impediment to speed, right? But then that's the constant education and awareness where if you don't build in a secure way, or if you don't have the right framework and structure in place, it actually slows you down over time, because either you might have a buggy application or you might have something that's not secure. So I think that awareness is, being raised, and we are maturing. I don't think we are fully, like, on a scale of 1 to 5, we are at a 5 yet, but we are better off today than we were a couple of years ago.
Yeah. And
And
I mean, clearly a huge opportunity for AI to up level the
oh,
operational stack, the
definitely,
engineering stack. Is
definitely,
that fair to
definitely.
say? Yes.
Yes. We are, and the way we are looking at it is AI needs to be like like at the center stage. Like, it's not something that we do on the side. It
Yeah.
needs to be like our core. I think you and I were part of another meeting recently where we said, I don't have a separate budget for AI. I have a
Yeah.
budget, and
Yeah.
I need to make sure that my tools are AI enabled.
Right. It's not like, oh, it's a nice to have. Now it's sort
Yeah.
of critical. And
Yeah.
actually, the expectation is you're going into the next week. You're not saying, oh, I've got this big AI initiative. You're like, hey, here's what we're doing, and people are implicit. There's an implicit understanding that AI is at the part of it. It's an AI centric product, and you've gone through an assessment of doing it. I've spoken to a number of CIOs, CTOs, engineering leaders. And of course, over the last couple of years, a topic of conversation always comes up is AI. First and foremost, they're receiving no shortage of demands from the business to be able to integrate AI and build AI products. But ultimately, they've also asked the question, where does AI belong in the engineering stack? One of our wonderful sponsors for this episode is Blitzy. They're able to provide an enterprise autonomous software development platform. And one of the things that really stands out for them is the infinite code context that they bring. It's very, very clear that Blitzy is one of those solutions that is able to really up-level an engineering function, something that I'm very, very excited by. So I would encourage people to visit Blitzy and book a demo and look how Blitzy transforms your enterprise operation. I want to change conversation a little bit because, your story is inspirational from my standpoint. I'm lucky to call you a friend, and I've also learned from you. And so before, and it has been the story of being able to build from kind of zero. By the way, I'm still at zero, so I'm still trying to figure that out. But
You're not. You're very humble to say that.
I appreciate that. There are a number of ups and downs that in anyone's journey. And I think it's important to talk about this, not just because it's important from a personality standpoint. I think it's about it molds you as a leader, right? Being able to go through whether it's adversity or just challenges, making decisions. And we've had a conversation like this in the past. What were some of the potential biggest ups and downs, as much as you're willing to share, that you actually have to build both yourself as a leader, but also build your community? I mean, you're now part of the CIO community, an active member of it. You're sought after. You're on CIO Classified. I'd like to think is a good platform. So just talk a little bit about the story, if you could.
Yeah, and if I could step back, from the time, like, I came to the US as an immigrant 28 years ago. But before that, I had worked in India. So actually that dates me. Like, I worked in India, Tata Motors, which is a big automobile manufacturing company, for 8 years before I came to the US.
Yes, fun fact for our listeners, Tata used to be a car company before it was anything else. And people were like, oh, wait a second. She was involved in IT outsourcing a long time. I was like, no, it was a car company way before that. And actually a consumer oil company as well for a while.
It's a big conglomerate of industries. I was in the automobile company.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. Okay, good.
So when I came here, although I had worked in India, but here I had to literally start from the beginning, right? And it was hard. And it was constantly like asking myself, do I really belong here, right?
Yeah.
But in hindsight, like, those times were tough, but in hindsight, the opportunity was like massive, right? And I wouldn't have been here without having, had those opportunities here in the US. What I learned, and obviously I was an immigrant, I had zero network, no safety net, zero room for error, right? So what I learned is you have to show up consistently. You have to work hard. You have to produce results. And you have to respect people around you along the way, right? And if you do that, then, and if you focus on being useful and say yes to the hard problems, like sometimes they're hard jobs that I did. So there was a time in my career when I went to a team and the team said, "You're not going to last here for more than 6 months," right? And I lasted there for 4 years.
Wow.
And they said, like, because this area is so tough, like people just come and go, right? And so again, I said yes to the hard problems.
Right.
I focused on being useful before I focused on being like wanting to be known, right? And then along the way, as business stakeholders, managers, they became sponsors, team members, peers became collaborators and lifelong connections. And then that helped me meet many people along the way. And one of them was you, Yousuf, right? I think I attribute a large part of the network that I built because I got to know you. And that through you, my window opened up to a broader network of CIOs, right? So I'm thankful for that. So again, I think relationships are not transactional. They have to be built on trust and shared experiences, which I'm grateful that I have. And I'm grateful that I have you as a friend.
I appreciate that very much. You're definitely not part of my network. You're part of my friend circle. So I would basically argue that. So I right back at you, and I appreciate it. One of the things I will say, that of course I've noticed, and I think being consistent, you show up very well with that. You see what you get. You're able to be very straightforward. You've not basically done any hand waving in conversations, and I think that's been really key. I guess it's an interesting story. You said, oh, by the way, this team said, oh, you won't last here for 6 months. You have 4 years, basically. I understand what that may feel like. I guess now that you are the executive, can you talk a little bit about how your leadership style has evolved? How you look at your own leadership team and you are able to push them to be better and hopefully be able to be good leaders, because God knows we need more of those in the IT realm, and they need to be robust as well to deal with this.
Yeah, and I think it'll be helpful if I just touched upon how that thought process of my leadership has evolved.
Yes.
So early on in my career, I used to look upon my team as my family. Mm-hmm. And I think that came from the perspective as an immigrant, my work was my source of stability and belonging, right? And
well, so it was a big part of your identity.
Yes. Yeah. So work was my stability, my belonging, like my identity. And so as a result, I would view my team as my family. Yeah. And I think like I made mistakes along the way of sometimes carrying along non-performers for longer than I should have, and which impacts the performance of the rest of the team, right? Yeah. Yeah. So along the way, I realized and I learned the hard way that your team is not your family, because in a family, there's it's unconditional, right?
Yes. Yeah.
But in a team, you need everybody to perform. It's not unconditional. Yeah. In a team, you need to have clear roles and accountability. You need to provide honest feedback, and you need to help them grow in their careers, right? And then it doesn't help anyone if you are carrying along a non-performer, because guess what? The rest of the team has to carry that slack, right? Yeah, totally. So I learned that really the hard way. And I think right now, to me, it's not about that I care less. I just care. I think I care better in a different way, because I'm creating an environment for people to really do their best work and grow in their careers. And I think that's important for them versus just empathizing in a way that, oh, you're my family. Right?
Yeah, no, it's a philosophy I have now as a founder and a company builder. I would like to create an environment where people do the best work of their careers and are able to grow. One of the things that you've done, I've been a guest at a couple of these events, is SVASE, and being a board member of the SVASE Education Fund. Could you share a little bit more for our listeners about what that is? A lot of aspiring IT leaders who listen in would love to just get a little bit more guidance, both about SVASE and then the additional responsibility you've taken outside of your existing busy job as it is.
Yeah, so SVASE, as you know, and I think you were the one who introduced me to SVASE. It's a exclusive group of Bay Area CIOs. We have a fund which was actually originally the fund was formed. The founders are Mark Egan and Jim Gates. And so Mark used to be the president of the Science Education Fund. And now I took over from him about 2.5 years ago. And the intent of that is, as a group of CIOs, we raise funds so we can provide scholarships to underprivileged students pursuing technology. And I think and it takes time outside my day job, but I think that's my way of giving back to the community. And what really motivates me is how we see, like, each of us, like, we are so many CIOs in this Science network, just by giving a fraction of time to an underprivileged student, that just has such
Huge
a
impact.
huge impact, right?
Yeah.
And so we not only raise funds, we do curriculum guidance for, we work with a college in a local community college. We provide mentorships, we provide internships. So I think all of that is hugely impactful for the underprivileged trying to pursue education and career in technology.
And what clearly, first of all, it's phenomenal work, but what are some of the more critical skills that you are making sure you impress on them to say, hey, look, you've got to really build in these couple of areas? I mean, now you've been an experienced CIO, technology leader, multiple companies, multiple different verticals. I think most people underappreciate the fact that you have been able to lead technology transformation, not at like one type of company or one type of vertical. You've gone from like kind of construction software to, mergers and acquisitions in a commerce infrastructure to networking technology to IoT. I mean, it's quite spellbinding. So there's a commonality of critical skill sets that future IT leaders need to have. Which are the ones that you tend to decide that people should spend more time focusing on?
Yeah, obviously, I think technology is table stakes, right? So I think what makes people like technology successful is their business fluency. Like, how much do they know the business? So then the solutions they build are relevant and are adopted, right? So again, we started from the beginning, like about building that trust. That trust can be built when you actually go and understand the business and do work that actually helps them get better, right? That's one. And secondly, again, being authentic, right? I mean, what we do is not rocket science, but sometimes problems are hard and things take time. So setting the right expectations. So I think all I'm telling you, Yousuf, is it's a technology function, but technology is important, but not the only thing. It's building relationships, how well you communicate, how well you manage the expectations of stakeholders.
Yeah.
I think is also key, because I may have the capacity to deliver something in 3 months, but my stakeholder might want it in a week, and that doesn't match, right? So
Fair enough. Okay, so we have a couple of quick questions to go through, and then we have a small lightning round, which is important to run through. It's a little bit of fun. So what is one secret you wish more execs knew, more CIOs knew, that they were going into role that you could share?
it's okay to not have the answers to all the questions.
Good one.
I think what's important is create an environment that will allow the right answers to emerge from the team.
That's a great one. Okay, I will definitely take that into account. It's something I may share and attribute to you accordingly. Okay, so as we close, we always do what's called a lightning round. Now, candidly speaking, if I may, I think this is the most important part of the entire interview. I think all of your wisdom and advice, experience is all valuable, but the answers to these few questions will determine your future, as far as I'm concerned. So
Wow.
I hope you're ready. So
I feel a lot of pressure.
you don't have time to think about it. You just got to answer the questions. You got to be ready. So I guess take a deep breath, take a sip. Are you ready to answer these questions? It's called lightning round. You got to be lightning round. Okay. Reader or writer?
Reader.
LLM or M&Ms?
M&Ms.
Oh, finally, we have a winner. You and I will get along just fine. Totally fine. No problem at all. Chai or coffee?
Chai.
OpenAI or Anthropic?
OpenAI.
Wow, that's a good win. Very good win. Okay. This is the last question. This is the most controversial one. Sweater vest or sweater?
Sweater vest, of course.
I just, just checking. I'm just checking. I just wanted to make sure we were friends.
I mean, I'm your friend, so I have to say sweater vest.
Okay, no, I appreciate that. Yeah, I just thought, you may have defected the cardigan community, but that's okay. No problem at all. I could be, no problem at all. Look, Ellora, thank you for having us. Thank you for making time. Thank you for sharing your experience. And we look forward to making sure that we stay in touch with you. But definitely, I think there's a number of key takeaways. One is you don't have all the answers, and part of that will be evolving over time, especially with the right team. Second, create the right environment for that team and to be able to lead with example and, be consistent. And the third is you've got to be able to drive transformation and learn. I think one of the key things that always stands out about you is that you have, as I mentioned earlier on, is, spent quite a bit of time in tech. I spent a lot of time in education, actually, as a CIO in education business. Another thing we have in common is we spent time in the building software in the construction industry and that space. But it's the context switching, understanding the industry. I think that requires intellectual curiosity, and I think you have that in abundance. And one of the many things I admire about you. So thank you very, very much for making time for us, and I'm looking forward to sharing more insights in the future.
Thank you. I really enjoyed this. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to CIO Classified. This episode was brought to you by Blitzy. Want to accelerate software development by 500%? Meet Blitzy, the only autonomous code generation platform with infinite code context, purpose-built for large, complex, enterprise-scale codebase. While other AI coding tools provide snippets of code and struggle with context, Blitzy ingests millions of lines of code and orchestrates thousands of agents that reason for hours to map every line-level dependency. With a complete contextual understanding of your codebase, Blitzy is ready to be deployed at the beginning of every sprint. Blitzy handles the heavy lifting, delivering over 80% of the work autonomously. The platform plans, builds, and validates premium quality code at the speed of compute, turning months of engineering into a matter of days. It's a secret weapon for Fortune 500 companies globally. To hear how engineering leaders are transforming the way they deliver software, visit blitzy.com. That's blitzy.com. Schedule a meeting with their consultants to enable an AI-native SDLC in your organization today.